Hey guys, I'm Leah and I get to talk with you today about fasting. I'm sure this is your favorite subject and we always want to talk about cutting chocolate and carbs out of our diet. But to be honest with you, I really want to encourage you that fasting is nothing about diet. So that was one of the hiccups that I've had with fasting in the past, especially with in regards to food, is that sometimes for females, I don't know if this works this way for males, but sometimes for females it feels like this is the cheapest diet I've ever done. That's not the way to approach fasting. Fasting traditionally is anything that brings you pleasure. And in my life, I started a fast in October, and I'm not sure I'm gonna call it a fast anymore because I'm pretty sure that this is a lifestyle change for me, but I have stopped being on social media. And so I'm gonna read you something out of 1 Corinthians 9:24 through 27. It says, do you not know that in a race all the runners run, but only one receives the prize? So run that you may obtain it. Every athlete exercises self-control in all things. They do it to receive a perishable wreath, but we an imperishable. So I do not run aimlessly. I do not box as one beating the air, but I discipline my body and keep it under control, lest after preaching to others, I myself should be disqualified. So I want to encourage you, everyone's life is teaching to other people. If you love Jesus and other people around you know it, you're teaching to them. And so this is one reason why we should have a goal to be disciplined. We should have a goal to be well practiced in the area of self-control. And I know it's not something super fun to talk about, but it is one of those things that this is a foundational thing. This is a fruit of the Spirit, self-control. And we live in a world. And the Bible even says, do not be conformed to the world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And one thing I want to encourage you is we can read the Bible and we can pray and do a lot of these wonderful, wonderful things, but we can't forget the practical things of keeping our body under control. And self-control as one of the fruits of the Spirit, I also want to remind you that the Holy Spirit helps us do this. The Holy Spirit helps us do this. And so maybe you've been in the place where you're like, I feel like God's telling me to stop drinking coffee because I've become dependent on it, but I'm just afraid of what's gonna happen if I do. I actually met with somebody a few years back and they were like, yeah, I kind of feel like God's been telling me to do that for a while. I don't really know what to do about it. And part of me was like, nah, it makes me feel like if he told you to do it, you should probably do it. Partly because I think sometimes we get caught up in the thing that's in our hand. It makes sense and it's familiar and it's not really that bad, but it's just kind of there. But like God really is, He's calling us to something better. He's calling us to something greater. And that can even just be a greater realization of His love. And that'll change who we are. A greater realization of His power. That will change who we are and how we live. And so when I stopped being on social media, one of the first things I thought was like, I wonder what people are gonna think of me. Like maybe I'm not in a good place to post pictures of myself. Maybe I'm not maybe I'm not healthy. Maybe I'm not happy. Maybe blah. And I was like, okay, that was a first trigger that was something that I needed to cut out of my life. Because I really believe that God was incredibly pleased with the decision to be off of social media. And it's crazy to me that my thought was about what other people would think first. And some of those things in our life that we cut out that bring us pleasure, and social media is one of those weird things that it kind of brings you pleasure and kind of pain, like kind of both. You really foster that seed of comparison, and that's not something that I want to foster. I really don't. To be honest with you, I really believe that Christians, we should be a team and we should not be fighting against each other. Not that fighting, but we shouldn't be competing against each other. Essentially, this is my call to stay in my lane and to run the race that's set before me and to do it with discipline. And so fasting doesn't mean that, you know, if I cut out chocolate and you cut out bread, that you're so much better than me because that's a larger food group and you eat more bread than I eat chocolate. That's not what it is. It really is even just going to God and being like, God, I really want to do this for you. I really want to honor you in this act. And you know what the cool thing was is right after Jesus was baptized and the Holy Spirit comes down and God essentially just says, this is my son. I am well pleased in you. This is before Jesus did any miracles. This is before his ministry even started. Jesus went on a 40-day fast in the wilderness and was tempted by the devil. And I know that doesn't sound pleasurable, but it was such a cool thing that he disciplined himself right away. He said, God has called me, he knows me, I'm his son, I'm identified as his son. And then he disciplined himself right away. And so this is something that I really believe we're called to, is first of all, let's identify, I am God's kid, I am God's child, I am his daughter, and he loves me incredibly. Let me discipline myself so that I can run the race set before me, so that I can do the things that he's called me to do. And that we do live in a world, we do, where there are temptations everywhere. And some of them are terribly, terribly destructive. Some of them are terribly, terribly distractive. And I don't believe that we're called to walk in either of those. I really believe that we're called to live a life of focus, of discipline. But even in those disciplines and even in those focus, there's incredible joy. And the Holy Spirit helps us live out the life that we're called to. And so for me, my fasting / lifestyle change now is social media. I just really don't believe that that was something, the cost was not worth the benefit to me, if that makes sense. And so ask yourself, search your heart, ask God to search your heart and maybe reveal something that's like, it doesn't have to be bad, it doesn't have to be huge, it doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be something scary where you're like, I gave this up because it was controlling my life. But essentially it's like, you know what, God, I want to give you another piece of myself. I want to give you that area. I want God, and my thought is, God, I want to give you this space to tell me who I am, and I don't want anything else to tell me who I am. And so that was what giving up social media has done for me. So I really hope that you are encouraged in this pathway to fast during this season of Lent. And, keep these disciplines throughout the year, but let this time of focus really, really bring you life. And I know that your relationship with God is going to be strengthened through this season. So we'll see you soon.